Welcome into This Week in Missouri Politics Daily Update. Today I am joined by a very special guest. We have on Representative Chad Perkins.
Yeah, well, you said special, Jake, and I appreciate that. You and my mom believe that to be true, and that might be about it.
At least your mom thinks you're special.
Yeah, right.
In this game. But I'm extremely grateful to have you on today, sir.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yeah. Things are heating up now in the legislature. Stuff is starting to get passed. Stuff is starting to get done. The Senate just passed their big utilities bill out of the Senate today, which is crazy. And then you guys had 3 big votes today as well.
I think we had 4 big votes today.
Oh yeah, that is true. It's true.
We had 4 big, a couple that ended up being fairly close, right? I mean, so we had the glyphosate bill, right?
It's a complicated word.
We had the glyphosate bill, which I think we got out with like 85, just a little bit of breathing room. And that's, by the way, just exactly about where I had my whip count for it. So it got out with 85. Then we had the statute of limitations bill that came out with 92 votes out of the House.
Yep.
Still another little fairly close bill.
And that was Representative Overcast bill, correct?
That's Matt Overcast bill. It had a good amendment. Well, who am I kidding? It had a great amendment on there from Brian Seitz about keeping kids safe.
I've been seeing him post a lot of stuff about that, so I was wondering where he was.
So for Brian Seitz, it's very personal, right? He represents Branson, and there's been some incidents that direction in his general area that this legislation would benefit those folks.
Yeah.
And so for him, it's very personal. It's a great amendment, and got that bill out of the House with 92 votes.
Who else but Superman to pass a bill to protect
Isn't
kids?
that right? Yeah.
You know?
Isn't that right?
That always gets me going whenever I see him wearing the Superman tie.
You mean every day?
Oh yeah,
Every day. Brian Seitz has 50 ties, but all of them have something to do with Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I saw that, and then you also had the crime bill.
We had a crime bill, Brad Christ crime bill, largely party line vote, right? But it was a good bill. There's arguments on both sides. The fact of the matter is this: the city of St. Louis is a vital part of the state of Missouri. It's a vital part of America.
Yep.
A great historic city. We all want to see it do well. Brad Christ has done a wonderful job crafting that legislation, negotiating it through the House, onto the Senate, and I think there's a real opportunity. You know as well as I do, it's a priority for the governor as well, and it's going to be a party-affiliated vote. I think there was a few Republicans that broke away. We picked up a Democrat.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Which one? I didn't see the board.
Well, before I say it here, I want to check, but I do believe we have one Democrat that voted for it.
All right. Yeah, I'll be interested. I wasn't in the chamber today, so I didn't see the vote board, but that is interesting.
I'm relatively certain there was one. Yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely find out here soon then. But no, and then what was the 4th bill?
Okay. Oh, well. Let's see. We had 4 today.
It must not have been that crazy.
No, it was a great bill. It was a great bill. I'd have to go back and look, though. I'd have to go back.
Well, those are the when it comes to the bills that seem to be catching a lot of attention this session.
Right.
There is the income tax cut bill, which is kind of now in the Senate. It's now turned into Senator Ben Brown's bill, and then in the House, it's being carried by Representative Bishop Davidson.
That's right.
So that's a big one that's been catching a lot of attention, and then also the glyphosate and the crime bill.
That's right.
And so, tell me, what is your take on the income tax bill? Because obviously you're sponsoring the capital gains tax, which I think I would guess is a smaller percentage of general revenue.
Oh, absolutely, a far smaller percentage, but it's a percentage that I think is like unfairly being taken.
No, absolutely.
From Missourians.
That one, that tax always seemed like it made no sense to me. Was that you're gonna tax what people made off of their investments?
That's right.
Which usually people use those investments for retirement, so you're also taxing their retirement.
And that's a great point, because a lot of those investments are not really gains as much as they are inflationary, right? Because it might have been for a long time you've had those investments. And so you're getting taxed. Let's say you bought a piece of property, or you bought into a stock 30 years ago, and in that amount of time it's tripled or maybe quadrupled. Well, keep in mind, a lot of that gain is inflationary, but you end up paying taxes on all of it. It's just absolutely unfair. And
you've got a cool name for your bill, don't you?
Well, we were calling it like the Missouri Reinvestment Act, and obviously it makes sense why, right? If I buy a piece of property and I flip it, I come in, whether it's in some small town or an inner city, you come in, you fix something up, and you sell it, and you make a little profit on it. What are you going to do with that profit? You're going to buy another piece of property and fix it up. It's exactly what you're going to do.
No, absolutely. And it just, it seems weird. And I think we ran into the hall one time, and you were talking to me about it, and you're like, when you were talking to me about the whole the issue of capital gains taxes, is that you're also you're taxing people's investment into the state, which is just, it seems kind of ludicrous, because I feel like that's kind of something we want as a state, is for people to come invest here, and why would you tax that investment?
And I love this argument that's like, oh, it's bad for the economy. Well, if you look at the 3 states that have done away with capital gains, they're the 3 fastest growing states in America. Texas, Tennessee, and Florida have no capital gains. They're the fastest growing states in America. Everyone says, well, not everyone, but the other side says it's only good for wealthy folks. Well, that's not true, because the fastest growing demographic in those 3 states are the middle class.
Yep.
It's just a good piece of legislation for everyone.
No, absolutely. Well, one bill that's kind of caught my attention in the sense that I'm a little undecided where I am is the income tax cut. And I love paying less taxes. I don't think there's anybody in this world who doesn't like paying less taxes. But from what I saw from the January General Revenue Report, with the decline that we saw, I am a little skeptical about whether or not now is the time to be cutting income tax.
Well, I think we've proven over the years that cutting taxes is actually good for the economy and it generates revenue.
Oh, no, I'm fully
now, with that being
that,
said, some sort of elimination of income taxes and a consumption-based tax, there's a value in that, right? Yeah. I love the argument that says, in that regard, if you do away completely with income taxes and you go to a consumption-based tax, well, there are 12 million, maybe more than that, people living in this country legally, and they may not be paying income tax, but they're stopping off at the convenience store and buying Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden they'd be paying their fair share.
No, it did always seem kind of the common sense thing to stop taxing income. Senator Curtis Trent put it perfectly. What you tax is you'll get less of. And so when you tax income, you're probably going to get less people getting income.
That guy is sharp, isn't he?
Oh, he's definitely somebody to watch.
And
over the next few sessions.
I love talking to him because he has a way of talking that's a little different than anyone else, and it's almost above normal speech. You know, he's so sharp. His way of talking is almost above regular speech. And just to look at his office, he's chief of staff is Bruce DeGroat. You know,
who we now have displayed on our desk here. Shout out to Bruce DeGroat. You're a total legend in Missouri politics.
I learned a lot from Bruce. My first few years in the House, he was a House member. And Bruce would do the most incredible thing. And I tell a lot of people when they first come in, if you feel like things aren't moving quick enough, just sit and watch and learn some tricks. And I did that with Bruce. Someone would get up and they'd take the whole 5 or 10 minutes to introduce their bill and go into great detail. And I guess that's important. Bruce, on the other hand, would wait till it came time to drop amendments. He'd drop his amendment. He'd go up to the microphone and he'd say, "This is a great amendment. I encourage everybody to vote for it." And that's all he would say. And I would be darned if the whole thing didn't pass. You know what I mean? And he would work that amendment bar just so smoothly, get in and out. Maybe somewhat unrecognized by a lot of folks, but it didn't go unrecognized by me. I'm like, I'm going to steal that move.
Yeah.
And I have stolen that move, and it works.
It kind of, like, even if you don't have full faith that it might pass, it does show a bit of confidence in you that you think it's going to, like when you sit there and you watch somebody do that, you're like, that person knows that this is going to get
absolutely.
through. And so you really don't kind of challenge it. You're like, I think this is going through. And so, yeah, I do see because in the House, it's a lot of, when it comes to stuff like that, it's got to be a lot of smoke and mirrors in a way where you have to display some sort of
some theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I mean, that's what the cameras are for.
When you're Bruce, if you're highly regarded among your colleagues, and they trust you, you got a good shot at getting it done. You know, so I just learned that move from him, and I use it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's look at the House now. So obviously you're Speaker Pro Tem. So kind of run me through that a little bit. Are you is your job mainly just to be there when the speaker isn't, or do you have things outside of that you have to attend to?
Pro tem is Latin for I give out peanut M&Ms, right? So, I mean, pro tem is Latin for, come hang out and have a Coke. But pro tem actually is Latin. I think it just means, like in the place of or temporarily, So, yeah, if the speaker's not there, you get to be speaker, right? I guess into some regard it would be like being lieutenant governor or vice president, right? So what kind of authorities does it come with? Largely depends upon your relationship with the speaker. And with that being said, and you know this is true, you've been doing this a while, there hasn't been House leadership that gets along as well, and I mean genuinely as well, as John Patterson and Alex Riley and I get along.
You three are probably a trio to envy when it comes to friendship and politics, because I don't think there's any three people in this state politics that are inseparable as you guys are.
Well, that's kind of you.
I think you guys have done. I mean, you guys had an extremely crazy good start with the House. Obviously, Speaker Patterson had an unconventional test to his speakership, but he won outright. And so, but it seems like you guys have had a very good hold on this caucus. And if I can compliment you guys have actually had a very good unity with your caucus this session. I have not heard any House drama. I haven't seen any House drama. And that's impressive.
Well, nobody wants to air out their dirty laundry
that's
in front of everybody, right? So, I mean, obviously, sometimes there's a little back and forth that takes place, right? Some negotiation. But if you can get everybody on the same page, or the majority of folks on the same page, then you're in pretty good shape. But, I mean, there's always going to be somebody who's not happy because their bill's not moving, or they didn't get some committee they wanted to get.
Yeah.
But
there's always going to be that.
But you do your best to take care of folks as much as you can.
Absolutely.
So.
Especially with the amount of freshmen you guys have this year.
Oh, and a tremendous group of freshmen, too. I mean, some sharp folks that are catching on quickly. It's true. The Senate came out to a fast start, probably a faster start than I've seen in 5 years.
Yeah, I think before today's count, they had 19 bills passed out, and I think the House had maybe 7 or 8 or so.
And we picked up 4 today, right? And I guess that would be total, wouldn't it? But we'll catch up with them. Not that it's a race.
What is the why is that? Just is it something with the new rules changes?
We have another step or two in the process, right? We have a rules committee, and there's nothing wrong with taking just a few extra days to vet your legislation, take a good look at it, have somebody else put their eyes on it as well, and that's what those rules committees are designed to do, and they're working out perfectly.
I mean, that's what I was kind of worried about. So whenever you guys came out with the rules changes and you announced that you're going to get rid of the slot system. Now, I obviously slots from the people I've talked to would have worked better had there been no term limit rule, because then you would have had the time for chairs of the committees to get used to it, and then also have them sort of, I guess, trained up in the way of finding the best bills to send out. But the complaint I also heard was that the slots were usually filled by the bills of the chairs.
Well, I don't know about that. Here's what I do know. Last year there was a slot system, right, where the speaker, Dean Plocker at the time, would only allow a member to file up to 20 bills. And now that's gone. You can file however many you want. With that being said, I think we have a few fewer bills this year than we had last year.
That's what I was talking to one
I think it just comes down to, like, people don't want to be told that they can't. They may not just do it anyway, but they don't want to be told they can't.
Yeah, I was told by, I think it was Representative Boucher, was like, research was surprised that we even had less bills this year. They were like, how is this happening? And I guess it's when you give them the chance to sponsor as many as they want, they're like, I'll just do 4. But if you put a cap on it, they're like, I'm going all the way.
We're Americans. we don't want to be told no.
Especially as a Missourian.
That's
we don't want to be told no. Yeah,
speaking of Sean Boucher, we were, just the other night, we were at the Courtyard by Marriott here in Jefferson City. And one of the greatest hotels you'll ever stay at.
By the way, we have our Stateswoman of the Year award next week on Tuesday. If you have people coming down, where do you put them at?
Oh, you put them at the Courtyard by Marriott.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Kelton won't be staying down here, but his lovely wife will be attending. And if they were staying down here, Kelton, where would you be staying?
The Courtyard by Marriott, of course.
Absolutely. Everybody knows.
It's a nice hotel, and it's got a great social scene.
It does.
Got a nice little hotel bar, nice little hotel food. Little gym. It's pretty nice. It's just a
Absolutely.
great place, man.
No, it is. If I could, I would stay there the whole time.
Yeah.
But then I.
But no,
wouldn't.
Sean and I were talking about that the other night there. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the slot system sounded a lot worse than what it was. It got a really bad rep because people don't want to be told no.
Yeah.
And now the slot system's gone, and people filed fewer bills.
Well, last session was also kind of beat up on Dean Blocker session, so anything that came from Dean Blocker, I could see people kind of beating up on. But speaking of legislation, you've got some interesting bills this session.
Okay. Yeah, well, capital gains is one of them.
Capital gains, yeah. That just passed out of the House, correct? Over to the
Passed
Senate?
out of the House. I think we got 100 votes. Largely party line. I think we got a couple of Democrats. Largely party line vote, and looking forward to that. We're pleased with the speed it's traveling at. Curtis Trent has the mirror legislation in the Senate side.
You guys were working on that together.
And so, yeah, Curtis and Bruce and I talk almost daily about that and where it is, what's going on. George Haruza filed the same bill, and his is out also. We've kind
He's
of combined
such a
them
great
together.
guy.
What a next level genius.
I was in the chamber, I think it was a couple weeks ago, when he gave his statement about his family history.
in the Holocaust.
Yes,
and so
and
forth,
I had never heard that before. But he's such a great guy. Everybody I've talked to who knows him, they all just raving compliments about him.
He operates on another level, man. Like one of the smartest people you will ever meet.
Yeah, and then you've also got one piece that was that actually caught a lot of steam at the end of Governor Parsons' term, because this was towards this was one of his last executive orders, was the hemp legislation.
That's right. So, with the passage of Amendment 3 some years back, legalizing marijuana, that Amendment 3, it was very strict. The marijuana industry is the most regulated industry in the state of Missouri.
It is.
Nothing else is even close to being regulated like it is. And there are some folks operating in Missouri, sort of operating outside that. And no one, I think there's some folks that are like, well, you just want to shut down these businesses. Absolutely not true.
Yeah.
If you're going to operate in that space, you need to be following the law. It's just that simple. So it kind of requires some folks to follow the guidelines, follow the rules, and if you want to be a good player, you want to be taken seriously in the industry,
Absolutely.
then follow the rules. That's all we're saying.
No, and so it just seems like I mean, at this point, from everything I've heard, everybody agrees that there needs to be some regulation. The question right now is, how do you regulate?
Right.
And so I think your bill offers a solution to that possible regulation. I believe.
Absolutely. So we offer regulations, we offer rules to it. We say, if you want to get in, go through the channels it takes to get in, make the professional investments it takes to get into the industry, and run it like a pro, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely. No. And so, yeah, that'll be that's actually some interesting legislation going through there, because that's kind of a debate that's happening without too much public attention to. So yeah, I think that'll be an interesting one to watch. The capital gains one will be an interesting one. I think the capital gains one has a better chance of success than, well, obviously Republicans dominate the state, so income tax cuts is probably a pretty high possibility to pass.
Well, not only is it a priority in the House, it's a priority in the Senate, but it's obviously a priority for this governor, as he's stated multiple times.
Absolutely.
And he stated it during his State of the Union, or excuse me, State of the State address.
State.
So I have a really good feeling about it.
Yeah.
I think there's also a potential that it comes out as one of the first bills that come out.
You think so?
With both the House and Senate.
So actually, let me pick your brain on this. So do you think you're a former policeman, which shocked me to find out. It was interesting because I was looking through a couple of things and I saw that was in your career. Which
I've worked in radio a lot longer than I've worked in law enforcement, but I have worked in law enforcement. Yeah.
Well, as a former cop, do you think there is anything that the state can do about the crime plan?
Oh, absolutely. I think, for example, Brad Crisp's crime bill is a tremendous crime bill. I think that I love St. Louis. We go to the things that everybody else goes to, right? The parks and the museums and the zoos and the sporting events and the concerts. The problem with St. Louis, to some degree, is it's largely becoming a series of very nice suburbs that lead to a baseball stadium.
Yep.
And it can't be that way. St. Louis has to be thriving and a vital part of it. And you look at just sort of the perception that exists there. There are those that think that it's not real, and they're entitled to their opinion. But the fact of the matter is the perception matters.
Exactly.
The perception matters, and the perception is there. And it's not just there across Missouri, it's there across the country. And so if we can do something to make a real difference in the crime in the city of St. Louis, it affects the entire state.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, just a couple even if it growth in St. Louis goes up 1 point, that affects the whole state, no matter what corner you live in. I mean, I come from the west side of the state, so I grew up in Independence, so I'm more familiar with KC. And for my whole life, at least, I felt like I can walk around KC and be fine. I've also felt my whole life that walking around downtown St. Louis is probably not the greatest idea. Now, I've only been alive for 23 years, but I've had the same conversation with Scott, and he said the same thing. He said he's felt like his whole life that St. Louis isn't a safe city. And so I think that perception problem is a huge issue.
The two towns, the two cities have very different perceptions. As Kansas City grows and St. Louis the city itself continues to shrink, right? Yeah. The metropolitan area is growing, but that growth isn't taking place in the city. There was a time, in the 1960s, that, St. Louis had 750,000 people living in the city. Today, there's less than 300,000 people that live in the city of St. Louis. It's just a bunch of abandoned warehouses with a giant arch in the middle. We have to fix that. And when you are the tough parent, the one that says no, it's going to make people mad, but it has to be done.
Yep. Do you think that bill is going to get passed this session, or do you think it's going to take a little longer? Obviously, with the House, it's no problem, but the Senate's a different question
The use of the filibuster in the Senate is so powerful for a senator.
Yep.
I think it's got momentum. I think it has a real opportunity.
So. Yeah, I think the more if crime continues to get worse in St. Louis, I think the more people will kind of start seeing, hey, we got to really do something about this. But yeah, that is going to be the question: is how do they get it through the Senate with Carla May there?
Yeah, I get that. But there are some skilled people in the Senate that will, make the deals that are necessary, and we'll hope for the best.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for coming in today.
Always a pleasure.
It's been such a pleasure. If you're ever in the Capitol, make sure you say hi to Chad Perkins.
Yeah, swing by 301.
He is one of the best people in the building.
You too kind.
Speaking of people in buildings, but currently not in the building, Scott Faughn is not in the building today.
Which is unusual because the guy's here all the time.
No, he is. He said, you know what, I'm out. Jake's had too many good guests lined up. I'm out of here. So he was a little upset with me. But
they said Chad's bringing Evan over, and Scott was like, I'm out.
But thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being on.
Always a pleasure. And if you're in the great Northwest,
you got to have United Fiber.
You got to have United Fiber.
Best rural broadband in, I think, the world.
They provide a tremendous service.
Yep.
In a great area of the state.
Absolutely.
I mean, the folks in the great Northwest, it's like the Texas of Missouri, right? Like the folks that live there are so proud to be from the great Northwest. Have you ever noticed that?
They are. I was at the Great Northwest Days. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
Such friendly people.
They put on a great event.
It was so good that Governor Kehoe even showed up.
Yeah.
Just to see how great it was.
And they've got great internet and great electric providers from our friends at United Fiber.
Exactly. And they've got a great senator from up there. I honestly, one day I really hope the Senate just lets Senator Black speak in the way that a great Northwesterner would say stuff, because I think it'd be the most entertaining Senate session there ever was.
A perfectly normal, down-to-earth guy
really, though.
in the Missouri State Senate. It's the wildest thing ever, isn't it?
Well, thank you so much. If you are able to come, make sure to come next Tuesday to our Stateswoman of the Year. We'll be having our Women's Legislator auction, where you can win either Dane Deal or Senator Curtis Gregory to come farm for you for a day. And I'll need to look at it again, but I swear I thought I saw Lincoln Huff was going to be riding a bull.
There's dinner with Chad Perkins. I'm providing dinner for 4.
That is probably one of the best things there, too.
That's right.
Yep. So if you're able to come, please show up. It's going to be at 6 o'clock at the Missouri Farm Bureau. Representative, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.